study was published in May 2020 called National Football League Scouting Combine Test Correlated to National Football League Player Performance. The correlation between NFL Scouting Combine Test results and NFL player performance is frequently questioned, and thus this study endeavored to identify significant relationships between NFL Scouting Combine Test results and NFL player performance indicators for all offensive and defensive positions, including quarterback, etc. These results can be useful for those in charge of making player personnel decisions in the NFL, such as general managers, draft analysts, and scouts, by helping them select NFL prospects. The results are as follows. Position of quarterback, using 107, there were 11 significant correlations. 6 of these correlations were related to scrambles per dropback. 3 of them related to games played, whereas 2 of them were related to bats per attempt, specifically height, 40-yard dash, vertical jump, broad jump, 3-cone, and shuttle run correlated with scrambles per dropback. However, weight, broad jump, and shuttle run were correlated with games played. 40-yard dash and broad jump correlated with bats per attempt. A better shuttle run was correlated with sacks per dropback and more bats per attempt and more throwaways per dropback. At this level of significance, a better 40-yard dash was related to more throwaways per dropback, whereas those heavier in weight and more hits per dropback, and those shorter in height had more sacks per dropback. The fullback position, there were 3 significant correlations. 2 of these correlations were related to avoided tackles per attempt, whereas 1 was related to longest run. Specifically, those lighter in weight and those with a better shuttle run had more avoided tackles per attempt. Those with a better shuttle run had a better longest run. It was found that a better broad jump and 40-yard dash were correlated with more avoided tackles per attempt, and better 40-yard dash was also correlated with a better longest run. It's interesting to note that a better bench press and a taller player height had more penalties per attempt, whereas a better 3-cone was correlated with more fumbles per attempt. Position of running back, there were 3 significant correlations of significance and 7 correlations at the 0.05 level. All 3 of these correlations were related to having a better longest run, specifically the 40-yard dash, broad jump, and 3-cone. Those lighter in weight and shorter in height had more avoided tackles per attempt. Those shorter in height had more yards per attempt. Running backs with a better shuttle run had a better longest run and more fumbles per attempt, whereas those with a faster 40-yard dash and longer broad jump had more games played. Position of wide receiver, 3 significant correlations at the 0.01 level and 5 at the 0.05 level. 2 of the correlations were related to having better longest catch, specifically the 40-yard dash and broad jump. The third correlation showed a relationship between those shorter in height having a better catch percentage. At the 0.05 level, wide receivers with more avoided tackles per reception were shorter in height and had a better vertical jump. For tight end, there were 3 significant correlations and 3 at the 0.05 level. 2 correlations at the 0.01 level were related to having a better longest catch, specifically the 40-yard dash and the vertical jump, whereas the third correlations showed that those tight ends taller in height had more games played. The 0.05 level, the broad jump, and those lighter in weight were also correlated with having a greater longest catch, and those with a greater vertical jump had a better grades per pass route. Offensive tackle, there were 5 significant correlations at the 0.01 significance and 8 at the 0.05. At 0.01, those with a better bench press and better grades for offense and better grades for pass block. Although those with a better 40-yard dash had better grades for pass block, it is worth noting that at the 0.01 level, those with the better bench press had less hurries allowed, whereas those with the more sacks allowed were taller in height. At the P05 level, it is most notable that those with less pressures allowed had a better bench press, better 3-cone, and better shuttle run. The guard positions, there are 5 significant correlations at the 0.05 level. Guards with better shuttle run were found to have a better grades for offense. Those with a better bench press had fewer hits allowed. Guards with a higher vertical jump and longer broad jump had more games played. It's also interesting to note that those with a better broad jump committed more penalties. The center position at the 0.01 level, centers with a better shuttle run had better grades per pass block. Those found at the 0.05 level that centers with a better shuttle run, 3-cone, and broad jump had more hurries allowed, whereas those heavier in weight had more pressures allowed, and those with a better shuttle run had more games played. Cornerback position, 0.01 level, cornerbacks heavier in weight and taller in height allowed fewer yards after catch per pass coverage snap count. 5 of the significant correlations were related to 40-yard dash. However, having a 40-yard dash time was only shown to benefit the number of pass breakups per pass coverage snap and games played, whereas it is shown to negatively affect the longest receptions per pass coverage, snap count, and penalties per snap count. Free safeties with a better vertical jump, better broad jump had more tackles per snap count. At the 0.05 level, those with a better 40-yard dash had more interceptions per pass snap count, pass breakups per pass coverage snap count, and more penalties per total snap count. Strong safety, there were 2 significant correlations and 11 at the 0.05 level. 4 of these statistically significant correlations are related to grades per tackle, and those with a slower shuttle run, a slower 3-cone, heavier in weight, taller in height, had better grades for tackle. Those with a slower 3-cone and slower shuttle Shuttle Run also had less missed tackles per snap count. However, those with the faster 3-cone and Shuttle Run had more interceptions per pass coverage snap count. It's also worth noting that at the .05 level of significance, those with the better bench press had better grades for run defense. Outside linebacker, at the .01 level, a faster 40-yard dash was correlated with more games played, more hits per pass rush, and more forced fumbles per total snap count, more receptions per pass coverage snap count, and more interceptions per pass coverage snap count, more breakups per pass coverage snap count, and more penalties per total snap count. Inside linebacker, most highly correlated NFL scouting combine statistic at the .01 level of significance was a bench press with 5 correlations positively related to more tackles per snap count, stops per total snap count, receptions per coverage snap count, pass breakups per pass coverage snap count, and penalties per total snap count. Second most frequently correlated NFL combine statistic was a 40-yard dash, where faster time was correlated with more sacks per rush and more forced fumbles per total snap count. The defensive end, faster 40-yard dash was correlated with better grades per pass rush defense, higher QB rating against, more pressures per snap count, more sacks per pass rush snap count, more hits per pass rush snap count, more hurries per pass rush snap count, and more forced fumbles per total snap count. We also found at the .05 level that a faster 40-yard dash was correlated with better grades for defense, although multiple correlations supported that the defensive ends lighter in weight performed better as pass rushers, those heavier in weight were better as run defenders. Specifically, those lighter in weight had better grades for pass rush defense, more pressures per rush snap, more sacks per pass rush snap, more hits per pass rush snap, more forced fumbles per total snap, more hurries per pass rush snap. Those heavier in weight had more games played and better grades for run defense, more batted pass per rush, more stops per total snap count. For defensive tackle, the .01 level of significance, 40-yard dash, broad jump, 3-cone, shuttle run are all correlated with more pressures per pass rush snap count, sacks per pass rush snap count, hits per pass rush snap count. 40-yard dash was the most frequently correlated NFL combine statistic at the .01 level of significance. Specifically, a 40-yard dash time was associated with better grades per pass rush defense, more pressures per pass rush snap count, more sacks per pass rush snap count, more hits per pass rush snap count, and more hurries per pass rush snap count, and more forced fumbles per total snap count. This study's findings support those in multiple previous studies regarding running back sprinting times and performance in the 3-cone and 40-yard dash. The NFL scouting combine are correlated with improved NFL player performance. For wide receivers, 3 different studies all found the vertical jump performance was significantly correlated with NFL player performance for wide receivers. Results in this study indicated vertical jump was significantly correlated with improved NFL player performance, although these were weaker correlations. It is worth noting that unlike the study by Headlund, the results of this study indicated that wide receivers shorter in height had more correlations with NFL player performance indicators than taller wide receivers. One of the more intriguing statistics in the Shuttle Run which was significantly correlated, although weakly, to grades for offense and grades for pass route. The Shuttle Run was the only statistic significantly correlated with either of these player performance indicators. Although the results regarding the tight end position are similar to those of the Mulholland and Jensen and Headlund, found correlation between tight ends broad jump, 40-yard dash, vertical jump, height, and weight. There were some contrary findings as well. Results indicated those lighter in weight performed better in the NFL than heavier players. It's interesting to note that although both wide receivers and tight ends are used to catch the football, the vertical jump was correlated, although weakly, with better grades for pass route for tight ends, whereas Shuttle Run was correlated with NFL player performance indicators for wide receivers. In our current study, test results such as the bench press 40-yard dash proved to have strong significant correlations with achieving better grades for pass block in the NFL. The bench press was the most number of strong significant correlations for the offensive tackle because it is also associated with better grades for offense and less hurries allowed, which is a new addition to the existing literature. It should also be noted that offensive tackles taller in height had more sacks allowed and more hurries allowed, which goes against common recruiting practices where football coaches look to acquire taller offensive linemen. It's interesting to point out that there were 3 NFL scouting combine skill test results significantly correlated with NFL player performance, and these were weaker correlations. Shuttle Run was most interesting statistic because it was correlated with better grades for offense. The reason for large difference between the number of significant correlations between the offensive tackle and offensive guards could be the result of how better offensive linemen in college are typically placed at the offensive tackle position. For center, similar to guards, the Shuttle Run was an indicator of better NFL player performance. However, it was strongly correlated with a better grades for pass block as opposed for grades for offense, which is new to existing literature. Ironically, 3 NFL scouting combine tests were inversely correlated with hurries allowed, specifically a faster shuttle run, faster 3-cone, and better broad jump were all correlated, although weakly to having more hurries allowed. Because of the center's position in the middle of the offensive line surrounded by teammates for support, this result may indicate that it is less important for the center to be agile or explosive when defending the pass rush, as the center has less area to cover when a defender is trying to pass rush the quarterback. For cornerbacks, it is interesting to note that heavier and weight possess all the significant correlations in study, which were both related to cornerbacks' ability to tackle, although weaker correlations, a better vertical jump is also associated with the cornerback's ability to tackle. One may think that the 40-yard dash is the most valuable test to determine a quarterback's NFL player performance because of how much they have to run to cover receivers, but ironically enough, the two most significant correlations for having a faster 40-yard dash related to more receptions allowed and penalties committed per snap count. For the free safety position, having a superior vertical jump and broad jump were strongly correlated with more tackles per snap count, although weaker correlations, the vertical jump, bench press, broad jump, and three cone were all associated with having more stops per total snap count. The only statistic to be correlated with better pass coverage defense was the 40-yard dash, which was associated with more interceptions and pass breakups per snap count. In terms of strong safety, all NFL player performance indicators correlated with height and weight favored taller and heavier strong safeties, primarily for the ability to tackle. It is interesting to note, although weakly correlated, better bench press was associated with better grades for run defense, whereas the better three cone and shuttle run were the two NFL scouting combine tests related better to pass coverage. For outside linebacker, one previous study found that linebackers with better 40-yard dash had more tackles and sacks. Those with a higher vertical jump had more sacks and defended passes. Those with better shuttle run had more sacks. Those results are similar to the current study for outside linebackers, where the 40-yard dash and shuttle run were significantly correlated to NFL player performance indicators. It's interesting to note in our current study, a better three cone was correlated with better grades for overall defense and pass coverage defense, whereas no other single NFL combine test result for any other defensive position was correlated with both of these NFL player performance indicators. In addition, the bench press was not significantly correlated with any NFL player performance indicator, whereas the 40-yard dash had strong correlations related to 7 different NFL player performance indicators. In terms of outside linebackers, similar to offensive tackles, the bench press was the NFL scouting combine test result. The greatest number of relevant significant correlations to NFL player performance, which is interesting because the outside linebackers did not have any significant correlations. Another difference between inside and outside linebackers is the NFL scouting combine test results of inside linebacker correlated primarily towards run defense and some pass rush, whereas the outside linebackers NFL combine test results were significantly correlated with the ability to stop the run, rush the passer, and defend the pass. Though weakly correlated, the vertical jump and broad jump were significantly correlated to the overall grades for defense.